Alrighty guys, welcome back to Onshape Orientation. Today is going to be a little bit of a longer video. It's kind of crazy, we're only talking about dimensioning, but there's a million different ways you can use the dimension tool. So like always, let's get started. Start a sketch by pressing Shift and S. We'll click our top plane, press P to hide those planes, and N to normalize. So dimensioning is a tool that you'll use in everything you use. So if you're drawing something for art, it needs to be a certain size. If you're using some theoretical, maybe you're doing some 3D modeling, maybe you're doing something to 3D print, right? It's got to make sure it fits on your build plate. We talked about the transform tool that allowed you to scale and move things in certain dimensions. This is how you start with those original dimensions. But in order to do dimensions, you need to have some geometry drawn. So we're going to start with a line, and we are going to do a rectangle just over here on the side. Okay. So you notice when we normally draw these things, it always pops up with those text boxes. We're not going to do that today. We're only going to use the dimensioning tool for what it's used for. So to start, I'm going to click the dimension tool. You'll notice that it has the letter D as a hotkey. So I will do that. I want to make this line a certain dimension. So a couple ways to do it. First thing, easiest way, click the line. What are you going to dimension? I tell the kids in my class, adults in my class as well, to treat this as if it were a little kid asking you questions, right? So you say, hey, we're going to go dimension some lines. Okay, which line are we going to dimension? That's what Onshape's asking you right now by turning your mouse into a crosshair. So, oh, we're going to dimension this line. So you'll click it. Cool. You'll see that these leader lines will pop up and a dimension will be in the center, but you can't really tell what that measurement is, okay? It's asking you where you want to put that line, okay? So I'm going to just set it up here on the top of that line, and I'm going to say I want that to be 3 inches exactly, and I will say okay. Okay, that was one way to do it. I'm going to draw another line. And I'm going to use the dimension tool again, but instead of clicking the line, I'm going to click the point. So I'm going to click the left point and the right point. And you'll see it does the same thing, but there's times when maybe my line is not straight, maybe it's a little bit of an angle. Clicking the line isn't always the best. So if you can click the two points, that might be better. So I'm going to click it right here, and I'm going to say this needs to be 4 inches. And now we're good, okay? I can move this out of my way. Some things that to note, I have students a lot of times, they're like, oh, these are in my way, and they'll click it and they'll delete it, okay? It's good deleting it, that the fact that it gets it out of the way. The problem is now it doesn't exist as a dimension. So if I were to change something later on, that dimension is not attached to it as a constraint, okay? Now I can give it some other dimensions. So let's say I want this 3-inch line on the top to be 3 inches from this bottom line, okay? So I'm going to press the dimension key, the D key. I'm going to click this bottom line, and then I'm going to click the top line, okay? And you'll see that I now have a distance dimension between the two. So now I can click. It's going to ask me what I want. I'm going to say that 3 inches like we talked about, enter, and now I have those spaced exactly 3 inches apart, okay? One of the coolest things about the dimension tool is that you can go in and fix those dimensions. So, oh, you know what? I read the plans. That 3-inch spacing is actually supposed to be a 2.5-inch spacing. Double click it, change it to 2.5, and then we're on our way, okay? While we're here in this simple line dimensions, I'm going to go back to my 3-inch line. Okay, I'm going to double click on that. Onshape's dimension box, and anytime you can type in a value, it's going to allow you to do algebra. So you can perform algebraic functions. So if we look at the number 3, there's infinite ways that I can write 3, right? I can do 3, I can do 6 minus 3, I could do 2 plus 1, I could do a million different things. And that's cool for students who don't know math or who think they hate math, right? Maybe they don't know what this is. So I need it to be 4 inches and 27:30 seconds, right? Kind of funky, right? Know how to write your order of operations. So what I like to do is do 27 divided by 32, and then I say plus my 4 inches. I can click enter, and you'll see now it'll make that line, but next to it, you'll see a little function sign, so that F, okay? And if I hover over it, make it turn highlighted, I have 27 divided by 32, plus that was 4 inches, okay? The reason I like to use the functions, I'll have kids sometimes, I don't know the decimal equivalent of, 5/16, or I don't know this, or I don't know that. Type it in. It'll give it to you, okay? Usually what we used to do was type 5 divided by 16 on a calculator, take that decimal, plug it in, and we had to do our math in our head. But this allows you to kind of get rid of that step. The other thing I like this is let's say we're looking at this and I'm, trying to approve a drawing that you're doing, or you're trying to figure out if you like it and you realize you measured it wrong. Okay, I have students do this all the time. It'll be a number really close to this. So in this case, it'd be really close to 5. And they might write 5.844, right? Or maybe they needed it bigger. It needed to be 6.844. They got the fraction right, but they got the whole number wrong. Come in here, plus 2. Sorry, I got fat fingers. Plus 2. And now it is 6.844. Okay. We can take that whole thing and scale it down and divide it by 2. And you'll see it'll do the math. So we got a pretty big function going on in here. You can get as crazy as you want with this math as long as it fits and follows, order of operations. And you know how to write things. A lot of times kids will be like, 4-27 divided by 32. Well, that says 4 minus 27 divided by 32. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. If this is too over the top for you, don't freak out, don't leave. Just type in your whole number as you normally would, okay? So that's that for dimensioning, doing our algebraic functions. We're going to go down here to our rectangle, and we're going to do D for dimension again, and we're going to do like we did before. So this time I want this to be 5 inches wide, and you'll see that it changed not only my top, but it changed the bottom, okay? So if I click my bottom line now, and I do it, it's already 5. I don't have to do it, but I have a lot of times students will do this, and they want to dimension everything, okay? I'm going to drag these down. I'm going to pull this a little closer. One of my drawing or dimensions, the first one I did is in a black color, and the second one I did is in a light gray color. So the one that is in black is what we call a driving dimension. So driving, right? We're in a car. If I'm the one who is driving, I'm in control of that vehicle. The person in the passenger seat is therefore the one who is being driven, just like this gray dimension is a driven dimension. So whatever the driver does, the passenger has to follow along. So if I double click that first dark black 5 and I change it to a 4, my passenger also has to turn into a 4. Okay. If I change it to a 7.5, my passenger is now a 7.5. Okay. It has to follow along. The reason it follows along is if we show our constraints, we're saying that these two lines have to be parallel and they have to coincide with this point here. Well, they can't be parallel and coincide and be different dimensions. It's impossible. The math won't work. So those are kind of plugged in here. Okay. Now I can come in here and then tell the top that I need that to be 3 inches, and that one's going to be okay because that is a driving dimension that has no effect on this driving dimension, okay? Other than the fact that it's going to be 3 inches away from the bottom, right? I can change this all I want, and it's going to leave my driven dimension alone. However, if I go to the left side, that one is now a driven dimension because this is the one that is driving the vertical dimension versus the horizontal of the 7.5, okay? We're going to delete some of these. Let's delete these guys because I'm going to show you another way to do dimension. Okay, so for rectangles, we got our height, we got our width, but I can also go corner to corner. Me and my students were talking about this week. We got a new TV in my classroom, and they were like, how the heck does this get that? You know, it's a big TV, actually 86 inches. Where does that measurement come from, right? It's bigger than 86, or it's not this, or it's not that, whatever. It comes from your corner to corner dimension. So how can I show that? Press the letter D and do exactly what I said. You click the corner and click the corner, and you'll see that I now have a corner to corner measurement, okay? What you'll notice is that as I move my mouse, if I go too far down, it's going to want to turn into a horizontal measurement because it's showing me that those points are technically horizontal from each other. One's just a little higher up. But if I go here in the middle, I can now get my diagonal, okay? I'm going to make this, we'll say 10 inches diagonally. And you'll see now that if I come here, this height now becomes a driven dimension because we just created a triangle and I can't tell the three sides to be certain lengths, right? If I try to change this and do a dimension here and say this 5, it's going to blow up. It doesn't like it because I can't have a triangle that is 5 with a hypotenuse of 10 and a other base of 7.5 because it's supposed to be 6.614. We could do a whole video on the math of why this works and why it doesn't. But just know that if Onshape turns red, you probably did something wrong. So again, gray means driven, and this black is what's driving that. So if I change this to 5, it's not going to like that because the 6 is now driven. So pay attention to how you do these things. It can't do it because 7.5, it's got to be a specific measurement, okay? We can make this a little bit bigger. We can change this to 10. But now you'll see it just straightens it out, right? So if we make that 8, it's going to change the shape of my rectangle. So keep that in mind as you're doing your dimensions. So we've done our lines, we've done our rectangles. Let's move on to circles. We'll draw a circle like we normally would, but we're not going to give it that dimension. We're going to give it to it from here. So if I click dimension and click the circumference, you'll see it highlights yellow. If I click it, it's going to give me two options. I can put my measurement on the inside of my circle, showing me a diameter of 6.703, or I can move my mouse and put it out here, giving me the diameter symbol with an arrow saying, hey, this circle is 6.7, but we're going to make it 6.5, okay? Same thing, I could go on the inside and place it, and you'll see because I already said this is 6.5, my inside will be 6.5 as well, but in a driven dimension, not a driving dimension, okay? So now like we did up here, I can use this dimension to say, hey, from the origin, I need the center of my circle to be 15 inches away, okay? If I click those 2 points and they're at an angle from one another, you'll see that I get kind of an angled measurement as well, just like we did on our rectangle up here. But maybe I want this to be a vertical measurement. It's all about where you move your mouse to, okay? So then I want it 15 inches away to the right, but I want it 4 inches, we'll say 5 inches below that origin, okay? Now, some really cool tricks you can do is if I said 15 inches from the origin and go here, what if I type that number in as a negative number? So negative 15. It is going to flop it the other direction. It's still going to be 15 inches away, but now it's the opposite direction, okay? So some cool ways to do things. If you placed it on the wrong side, or you're like, oh, I actually want this here. You don't have to go in and do transform and move. You can just kind of use the dimension tool to your advantage, okay? So after we do that, most common one I get asked all the time is about angles, okay? So if I were to draw a line and then draw a line vertical, we all know that that's a 90-degree angle. To prove it, I can go dimension, click both of those, and I click again, and we know that it is a 90-degree angle because it's being driven, and I can't change that. So if I try to double click, I can click on those driven dimensions all I want. It's not going to pop up a text box. So If we click our show constraints box over here, you'll see the reason it's driven is because this horizontal line has to coincide with this vertical line that is perpendicular to it. And I can't have a number that is less than 90 or more than 90 if it's horizontal, vertical, and perpendicular. If it follows all those rules, it can't be anything less than 90. But if I draw another set of lines and I don't go straight, when I go to do that dimensioning tool, I can click one line and click the other line, and you'll see that depending on where my mouse is, I can give it a different measurement. So let's say here I need it to be 45. Well, if I'm on the other side, is that going to be 45? No. What if I come down here? Oh, I could have 45 on this side of the line. What if I go here? I can get the full rest of that circle. Remember, a full circle is 360 degrees. So where are you basing this angle off of? Pay attention when you're doing drawings. Sometimes they'll give you a drawing, a value, an angle value in a different location. I do it all the time with my students to see if they're paying attention. So here I want this to be 45 degrees from this flat angle here, right? Well, if I come here, now this is going to be 135 driven by this 45 degree angle, which means this will be 225 degrees driven by this 45 degree angle, okay? If I change this to a, we'll go 65, you'll see now I got a 115 and a 245, right? They all change. And same thing here, just like we did before. If I did negative 65, it's going to flop that the other direction. And you'll see that the 115 and the 245 switched. So to do angles, you click the two lines and it'll pop up on whatever side you want. Select the side you want, type in your angle. Our next piece we can talk about is our arcs. So if we go here and we'll draw an arc, do a pretty big arc. We'll go here. It wants to ask for a radius. We don't want to do that right now. I'm going to use dimension to show the radius. So I can click my arc and you'll see it's saying, hey, a radius of, maybe that needs to be 6.75, 6 3/4. Okay. Cool. There's my radius. If I take this radius measurement, I can drag it down and you'll see it'll continue that line and show me that dimension. Okay. I can come over here to the other side. I can bring it up here on the inside like that. I can pop it up over here, have it as a line that tells me what to do. That's that arc that we're talking about. Another thing I can do is I want to figure out how long this line is. If this is a 6.5 or 6 3/4 radius, how long is this line? Well, I would click one end of the point and I would click the other end of the point. And you're like, well, that just tells you the distance between. Well, we got the third step we need to do. I'm going to come up here and click my radius and you'll see now I have what's called an arc length. Okay. Kind of cool. Maybe I need that to be exactly, maybe I did a measurement in the real world. I need this to be exactly 20 inches. Well, if I know it's a radius of 6.75 with a arc length of 20, it'll fill the rest of that radius in until I have 20 inches of that arc. Okay. So that's kind of cool. Maybe you're doing some sort of, repetitive pattern and you know exactly that, hey, the center of this is 6.75 radius, but I need it to go out this far. Cool. Maybe you have some overlapping parts. That's how you would go about doing that. So that's our arcs. Last but not least, I want to talk about center lines. So if we draw a line, top to bottom, it doesn't matter how long it is. We're just going to throw a line in there. But what does matter is that it's a construction line. Okay. I'm going to draw some geometry off the side. We'll just draw a real quick shape with real lines. Give something here like this. Okay. So if we look, I can go through and now start giving this a dimension. So I need this to be, overall needs to be 35 inches tall. Okay. This needs to be 9.5. So a lot of people will draft in this manner. Maybe I need this to be 5 inches above the top, right? Or maybe I need that to be 8 inches, okay? This needs to have a radius of 1.5. And I need this angle to be 59.785263. Okay. Well, I can give it a dimension of this 9.5, but what if I needed it to go from this corner to the center? I need this corner to here to be a certain measurement, but I would have to do the math to double it to figure out what it is. We're going to revolve this feature. Well, if I go past that center line, you'll see now I have the double measurement of that. So let's say I need this to be 30. Well, now it's going to push that out. And the reason it pushed that line out is because I have this dimension of 9.5. So if I change this now to 25, it'll move that. But if I tell this from here to here over, I need the hole to go through the center of this that is 4 inches wide. You'll see it'll move accordingly, right? Now I could come in and do some geometry here, give some radii, round some corners off a little bit, do that one too, and round that one. I have this shape. We'll say okay. I'm going to click that face, revolve it around this axis, and you'll see now I have some sort of spindle, auger, tool part, whatever you want to call it, using only half of that geometry and revolving it all the way around. So some pretty cool things you can do with construction. Just be aware that when you do that, this line has to be a construction line. So if I delete these lines, or these dimensions, sorry, and turn this back into a real line, if I go dimension from this line to this line and go over, it's not going to give me that center line dimension of that 4 that I want to do. It is at 2, so I could go 2 and do it that way. But if you're planning things out, a lot of times when you're doing drafting, they give you dimensions in center lines. So instead of trying to figure it out yourself, just draw that center line and let the program do the dimensions for you. So some cool little tips you got there. Dimensions are by far my favorite things. Last tips to leave you with, just remember that center line feature. Turn this Q, pressing the letter Q on the keyboard will change it to construction, and that'll allow me to do from here to here. Those need to be center to center of 25.5. And as far as doing negative numbers, so if I said on my angles or on my spacing, so we'll flip this 3 over the top of this 4. I'm going to double click this 2.5 and say negative 2.5. So I want it to go to the other direction, okay? So the negative tools, the angles, remember to click 2 lines and then place your angle accordingly. But dimensioning is where it's at. You're going to have a lot of fun doing this. If you guys are making prints to hand out, or you're making prints to give your teacher or whatever, just know that the dimensioning features in that are a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in another video. But they're fairly similar, but there's some little tweaks and stuff you got to pay attention to. I'm hoping you guys are getting a lot out of this. I've heard from some teachers, some teacher friends that I have that are using my videos in classes, that the kids are loving it, and they're actually getting it. I've had a lot of adults reach out to me as well saying, hey, like, how did you do this? Can you make me a video on that? So if you are one of those people, leave me a comment down below. Tell me what your favorite part is, or your favorite Onshape video is so far. Tell me about a project you might want me to work on, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. Next week, we will be working on our constraints. So we've talked about these a lot in other videos and a little bit in this one. Constraints, I want you to think of constraints as rules for the drawing. So we've given it dimensions, but now it's, hey, this has to touch this line, right? So if we look, we have our coincident, we have our concentric, parallel, tangent, horizontal, vertical, perpendicular, equal, midpoint, normal, pierce, symmetric, fix, and curvature. So those are our constraints. I'm probably going to break those into 2 videos just because they're so important. I could probably talk about certain ones a lot more. There's some of those constraints, I'm not going to lie, don't get used all that often in the general way we use things in our shop, but they might be out there, and then you might need a project that you guys are doing that it'll help you with. So again, keep watching, keep chugging away at these. I think you guys are doing a great job. That's going to be it for us today. Hope you guys have a good night. Take care.